Hey, everybody, welcome to Game Breaking News with me, Jeff Grubb, your host from GiantBomb.com. Thank you for tuning in. On this episode, we're going to be talking about that Switch 1 Direct, which has Nintendo games coming to the Switch in 2026 and PlayStation games coming to it in 2025. We have Rhys Elliot on the show today, so it's going to be a good one. Let's get right into it by saying hi to Rhys himself. Rhys Elliot, how's it going?
I'm doing well, Jeff. I'm doing well. I moved house since I was last on the show,
And
so
you were like just here not that long ago, so but okay, that's quick.
yeah, it's been a quick, stressful but fun time. So I'm pretty tired because of that, and also maybe because I may or may not have been playing a bit of Kingdom Come Deliverance 2
Sure.
until like 2 a.m. last night. So I'm exhausted, but no regrets. We have to deal with the consequences of our actions.
We
But
charge
no,
ahead.
I'm doing well. We charge ahead. But no, doing well, like doing some fun research at media. But I also got a new job. I'm doing the classic like Lucy and Tam thing, having multiple jobs, which is also part of the tiredness. So I
Yeah,
also started working. Oh, go on, man.
no, it's just good. What is the? Can you say what the new job is?
Yeah, I can. So as well as media, I'm also working for an analytics company called
Very cool.
Linear, who like really kind of impressed me with their like copies sold data, especially for Steam and PlayStation. So if you want me to like grab any copies sold data for Steam or
Sure.
PlayStation on the show, let me know and I'll look it up. But yeah, exciting times.
Very,
Busy, stressed, but happy. And how are
very
you
cool.
doing, Jeff?
I'm doing good. Doing happy to have you back on the show. I remember saw you out there like maybe a week ago, where you gave a pretty nuanced look at what was happening with Assassin's Creed. So of course everyone just took the parts that they needed to fight online. I was like, oh, I recognize that. Is that something that you're used to yet?
Yeah, I mean, people will just pick and choose what they want to kind of fulfill their own narrative. Like, I hate Elephant in the Room. It's Grum's. He was kind of using some of my data to push his like ridiculous anti-DEI like narrative. I was really
Yep.
upset by it because he just picked and chose a few kind of like data points without any context just to push that
Yep.
agenda. So, yeah, it's the nature of the game, right? It sucks, but you know.
Yep, It's like and it happens kind of across the board too. Because people write the headlines based on things that analysts say, and they took some stuff you said, and it's like we boil it down to make it punchy and have a good headline and eye catchy, and that can kind of lose some of the nuance as well. So, got to be a little frustrating, but I'm glad we can get you on here and actually just talk about it. Assassin's Creed Shadows doing pretty okay, right? That was like your takeaway. It's like this is doing pretty well.
Yeah, exactly. It's doing okay. I mean, like my headline was, "It's not the silver bullet that Ubisoft
Yeah,
needs," but it's
and
still
and no one was
it's
really thinking it could be, but yeah, of course it's not. Yeah,
yeah, exactly. Like I think it tracked like over 1 million copies sold over the weekend. Like that is like they're amazing numbers for kind of
hmm
any game, but just the expectations were so high, and of course there's the whole like anti-DEI crowd that are kind of like jumping on anything they can like grasp onto to kind of like keep pushing their ridiculous narrative. But no, it's an amazing game that's selling pretty well. The word of mouth is great. I think it'll snowball into like a big success over time. I'm sure there's a Switch 2 launch coming eventually. So I mean, it's just too early to really tell. But yeah, so far it's like pretty lukewarm. But lukewarm does not mean cold. Like
yeah,
the potential's there.
yep. It's I'm enjoying the game as well. I haven't had much time for it recently, playing some new stuff, but enjoyed what I have played of it. All right, you know what? Let's explain what we do here. Most weekdays, I, Jeff Grubb, will help piece your gaming life back together. That includes breaking news and maybe even some of our own original reporting. For all these topics, I'll get the input of a bona fide expert who will make me look smart. If you are watching live on Twitch, welcome. You can always listen to the show later on podcast feeds by searching for Game Breaking News or find the RSS on giantbomb.com. You can also catch the show later with chapters and timestamps on YouTube. Hello, YouTube. All right. We have a lot to get into, so let's break some gaming news, starting with that Nintendo Direct. This is the roundup of news from, I think I got this from Nintendo Everything, or yeah, I think that's right, but might be wrong. Anyway, here's the big headlines. We'll kind of go in order of, the biggest games, some other stuff. We'll talk about the last thing they announced at the end, though. Pokemon Legends ZA, they gave us a little bit more information about that. No release date still. They did say late 2025, which is what I think they said in the Pokemon showcase last month, which was almost exactly a month ago. But they showed off more gameplay. It looked pretty solid, looks pretty smooth, and it's Pokemon, right? It's going to have its audience, and a lot of people are going to show up for this one. And it's also the Pokemon Company. They like releasing Pokemon games late on a system, even after a new one comes out, a new system is out. So this game's probably going to do just fine. The audience for Pokemon is not super sensitive to upgrading hardware, I would assume, right? Right, Rhys?
Yeah, you're right. I mean, Pokemon will be a system seller for the Switch 2 eventually, but
True.
also, yeah, people are going to play it on the old systems. And yeah, the original Switch has sold, what, 150 million units. I think there's still like 90 million plus active, like yearly users of it. So it's a huge base. Like, Pokemon Legends did really well too. It kind of broke that, Arceus that is, it kind of really broke the mold, right? By like ditching the series, kind of more rigid structure for something a bit different. Like I really loved it personally, like, the kind of more sprawling semi-open zones where like the Pokemon were roaming
Yeah.
freely, sneaking through the tall grass, like Pokeballs thrown in real time, which was something that like we always wanted, right? So if they can just build on that, like, they've added the day-night kind of cycle thing which I loved from Pokemon Gold and Silver as a kid. Yeah, they're just onto something great with that series, and I think it's just going to keep expanding kind of separately to the core series, right? Which obviously will probably come next year with the
Yeah.
is it the 25th or 30th anniversary? I forget.
30th, I think. Yeah. It'll be the 30th anniversary. Yeah. So,
I don't like that, Jeff.
yeah, and it's it would be the 10th generation and the 30th anniversary. It's a long, long time. Yeah, I was just like doing some math of because I'm playing Overblood for Blight Club, which is a really bad PlayStation 1 game, and the someone pointed out on some thread or maybe in the YouTube comments that when Game Informer originally played it, because that's where Dan discovered it, he gave it to me here as well. When they originally played it there, it was less time between when the game came out on PlayStation to that point, as opposed to from when they played it on Game Informer to now. So it's like, oh my God, it's just like time. Somehow time is growing exponentially. It is deeply upsetting. Either way, Pokemon, yeah, of course, going to be a big deal, going to be a system seller. And this game will honestly probably also sell Switch One still. The Switch Lights will probably sell pretty okay because of this game. I'm with you. I like Legends. I like it a lot. And I think this one's looking pretty good. I want to play it and know for sure. I actually did like the kind of big open zones as like, and I mean open as in like didn't have a lot of stuff going on inside them. It was just the wilderness. And here bringing stuff into the city. I don't know, the blandness of the art style that they are using for Legends because their technology isn't great is maybe not working as well for me in the city setting. But hey, if it's a fun game to play and I love the Pokemon looks and designs, I'll probably be pretty happy with this game. Speaking of another game that we've known about, this one we've known about for a very long time, and it has it still does not have a date. Metroid Prime 4 Beyond. They did show us more gameplay than we've ever seen before. It looks fantastic. As far as we could tell, pretty rock solid 60 frames per second with that great Retro Studios art. They ended the trailer with a hot rod red Ferrari Metroid or Samus suit. Oh my God, I called it. Well, she's a Metroid now. That's actually true. Either way, though, it looked really good, but they still just said 2025. We were kind of split. There's four of us watching this, talking over it here on Giant Bomb, Reese. And some of us thought, okay, they're not going to say the date now because they're showing this off as a Switch 1 game, and then they will save the date as something to put into the Switch 2 Direct, which is still happening next Wednesday, 6 days from now. And then Sean was like, I don't know. I feel like if they're just holding off because it's actually coming out later this year. I don't really know. What do you think, or what are your hopes?
I mean, I'm inclined to agree with what you guys are saying on the stream, but I don't know. There's also this kind of weird thing of that news app that they've got, right? Where they kind of
Yeah,
like drip in the news out. I
Nintendo
think they
Today. We'll
said,
talk about that. Yeah.
yeah, exactly, like on a daily basis. And obviously, the people who love Metroid is like a niche series, right? Despite
Hmm.
Nintendo kind of marketing it quite heavily. So the people who have their Switch accounts are kind of looking at the Nintendo Daily thing every day. They would be the audience to kind of feed Metroid to. So maybe Metroid will appear in that. I'm not sure.
Yep. I think, if you have this game coming out around the same time as the Switch 2 is available, and you're trying to maximize the amount of time maximize the return you're going to get after spending 7 years making this game and rebooting development at least once, as far as we're aware. You're probably going to want to associate it with the new thing that's going to sell, as well as the system that has a ton of users already, just to get the most out of it. And in that case, I think we get in that direct, and we get the exact date, especially if it's launching on the Switch 2 launch date. Mike in chat is now saying this is a good point. Maybe the release date for this game is the Switch 2 launch date, and they just don't want to give the game away. If they give us a date for this game in May or June, I think immediately everyone would go, well, that's probably when the Switch 2 is coming out. And then, so they're trying to save that. And they could we all know there's a direct next week, so they can just save it, and we'll get that information then. But as far as the game looks, it is, man, I'm a huge Metroid Prime fan. I like Metroid Prime 2 a lot. My plan is I'm going to play 3, whether they release it or not, themselves or not, I'm going to play it myself. I've never actually played Metroid Prime 3 because I had kind of fallen off the Wii by the time that was happening. So I'll play that, and then I cannot wait for this game. It looks really fantastic.
Same.
Go ahead.
But look, just quickly to say, I agree with Mike that it's going to be kind of like a Breath of the Wild situation, right? Like Nintendo was holding off on that, like between the Wii U and the Switch. So I think it's going to be a similar kind of thing. But also, I just wanted to quickly mention, I love Metroid Prime. It's like one of my favorite series of all time. And I really like the look of those like psychic abilities. Like I think they have a lot of gameplay potential there. I think there's going to be like the Doom 2016 of it all, and the kind of puzzle solving implications there are crazy as well, because the like kinetic powers in Breath of the Wild were a complete game changer.
You're right. Yeah.
So if Retro can kind of do that with Prime, then it's just going to be insane. Like I can't wait for this game, Jeff.
Yep. My Discord just broke on me. I don't know if you could still see me, Jam. I'm going to assume probably not. Can you hear me still?
Yep.
Okay, good. All right. Well, we'll continue on with the show one way or the other. Discord's being kind of funky today. I guess that was the new thing in the trailer itself, that we hadn't seen before, which is the psychic powers, and it's physics-based psychic powers. So kind of looking a little bit like Half-Life 2, a little bit like Geist and Psyops. I think Retro is going to have a lot of fun with that. You get the sense that like when this game was rebooted, Nintendo was like, kind of went hat in hand over to Retro and said, hey, please, let's figure this out. Do you have any ideas? And Retro's like, yes, we have ideas. And they're just throwing a bunch of fun stuff in here that, first of all, it makes Samus look really cool. Her standing on the cover. I don't know if people have seen the cover art, but her standing on the cover with her hand out like she's using the Force, and the Scion purple energy like bubbling in her hand. It's very neat. So looking forward to seeing how that actually all plays out. Then there are 2 games for Switch 1 coming out in 2026. This is, a little odd, but Nintendo can be a little odd. The first one here is Tomodachi Life Living the Dream. Tomodachi Life Living the Dream is a sequel to Tomodachi Life, which is a game we did get for the 3DS. It is a life sim game, like The Sims, kind of adjacent to Animal Crossing. You design your Miis. They live their life. They work jobs. They they kind of like do things on their of their own accord a lot of times, where you set their personalities, and then they go out in the world and do something, and then suddenly a vignette will break through of them hosting a news show talking about what everyone else on the island is doing. And it's, it is a little bit quirky is definitely the word, but it's a very good game for like my kid who just likes to play games by telling stories to herself. It's perfect for that. And then if you also want to have, like, if you have a ton of goofy Miis of your friends and celebrities, you can also tell some pretty silly stories as well that I have enjoyed myself. So I like Tomodachi Life a lot. Seeing this get into this direct and be the one last thing really was pretty exciting for me. Any love for Tomodachi Life from you, Rhys?
Not really. Like I tried it back in the day, but it didn't hit for me. But hey, I'm still open to it. But still weird that they announced it for this, right? If it's 2026, just wait another week, Nintendo. It's very strange to me.
Yeah, it's a Switch One game though, so I think let's do the other one real quick, and then we'll talk about what they're thinking here. So the other one is Rhythm Heaven Groove, a new Rhythm Heaven game. This is from the WarioWare team. This is like one of their other franchises. They kind of go back and forth between WarioWare and Rhythm Heaven, but we hadn't had a Rhythm Heaven the entire run of the Switch, and we had a handful of WarioWare games. So it's like, oh, are they just kind of done with Rhythm Heaven? Well, the answer is no. They showed off a very good-looking Rhythm Heaven. I think the last big Rhythm Heaven we had might have been a collection on 3DS, but there was a new one on Wii, I want to say. And yeah, I don't know if we've ever had Rhythm Heaven like in HD. So that was kind of weird to see some of these Rhythm Heaven mini games rendered in HD, and there was a bunch of new ones in there as well. So it's got a really striking look. But I really adore this series as well. This was very much a direct for me and my bullshit, so I was pretty happy with it. But this one is also 2026, Rhys. My guess here is, even though these games are pretty far off, they want to establish right now the Switch One will have stuff going into next year, and it's probably easier to like let people know about these games now than after the Switch 2 is out and a lot of people have forgotten about the Switch One. I don't know how well that's going to work, right? Because if people are going to move on, they're going to move on. But I get the thinking to a certain extent. Can you make heads or tails of like this whole idea here of them announcing these games for 2026 right now?
So, I mean, this is just complete conjecture, like speculation, but maybe they just really, because this Switch to Nintendo Direct is probably the most important Nintendo Direct there has ever been, like full
Yeah.
stop.
Uh-huh.
Maybe they just want to just save only the big guns for that, because the Riven Heaven and the other game, they're just deep cuts. They're just such small games, and they might detract from your Mario Kart, your 3D Mario's, and everything, and your Pokemon. So I don't know, but it's just so hard to tell with Nintendo. But like, I do feel like this whole direct, like maybe they were also fulfilling like third party agreements as well, because there just seemed to be a lot of like perfunctory announcements that didn't seem too exciting. But I don't know, it's just Nintendo. It's like, I've been an analyst for like almost 7 years now, trying to kind of predict why they do what they do is just impossible, right?
Yeah, you really, yes. Nintendo's the one that will just do things their own way, and they're not worried about, definitely not worried about what people think, but they're also just not worried about conventional wisdom. So, yeah,
Hmm.
I'm sure they have their reasons, but actually being able to suss them out, a lot of times what we'll do is kind of apply our own thinking on, and then try to work backwards, but to like, okay, they must be doing it because of this. And then a lot of times we'll like hear on like something like Kit and Krista years later. It's like, no, the real reason they do something is because it's just like they're worried about this one very basic thing. And it's like, oh, okay, I guess we always maybe make it more complicated than it needs to be. All right, some other games worth pointing out from this direct: Marvel Cosmic Invasion, a new Marvel superhero beat 'em up. I think it's being made by some of the people that worked on Streets of Rage 4 and Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, the most recent beat 'em up, like Shredder's Revenge, I think is what it's called. It looks pretty good. It's kind of bringing together a lot of the characters that you might be thinking about because of Marvel versus Capcom or Marvel versus Capcom 2. Like they're using a lot of the same like suits that they would have, like the characters would have in that game, showing up here, kind of behaving in ways that's similar to that as well. But it's a beat 'em up of the Capcom or the Marvel characters, excuse me, just kind of going through the streets and beating up villains from the Marvel universe. I thought it looked really cool, and it's definitely a game that I'm like, we should have had one of these, but another one of these by now, especially after X-Men 97 did so well, and I really like that show. You a fan of like the old classic X-Men and arcade beat 'em ups?
Yeah, yeah. I kind of so I'm like almost 35, so I was just on the tail end of that. I just kind of caught it. So yeah, it does appeal to like our sensibilities as like, nostalgia gamers, but also like kids love Marvel properties still. Like my nephews are obsessed with Spider-Man and even
Right.
X-Men. I don't even know how they got obsessed with X-Men. But like, yeah, it kind of does bridge both worlds. And like that, I think it's going to be a sleeper hit if they market it right, if they can get it in front of kids. Like that could be like a holiday game that just every kind of kid gets. So I think it's smart. And you're right, like it's been a long time coming. Like it's wild. Like, why haven't they? I mean, you know, Turtles was a good IP. Like Shredder's Revenge, I loved that game
Hmm.
so much. Like when it came to Game Pass, it was incredible. But yeah, these beat 'em ups, they're so, as long as they're like accessible, like so, like, you know, the couch co-op of it all, the, you know,
Yes.
parents playing with their kids of it all, like it really does have potential to like really blow up. Because like
Yeah.
I did some research with Media a couple of months ago, and so many people love couch co-op games, but there are just so few of them. And I think the sales
Hmm.
of like Split Fiction show that there's such a big demand for it, but there's no supply. So something like this could do really well, but they just need to market it right, get it in front of the right crowds. But I'm excited. I want to
Yeah.
play through this with my nephews.
Like we asked that question, like, have you played a couch co-op, like a local co-op game in the last year on one of these episodes a few weeks back? And it was like most people had like way more than the majority. It was something like 60 to 70% or something like that. I was pretty surprised to learn that people are doing this, even though there's a dearth of supply, like you said. This game, yeah, they said right here in the write-up, has support for both local and online co-op. So that is good news, and that's what you would expect from a game like this. All right,
Mhm.
then there's okay, two games from a different company, Patapon 1+2 Replay, a PlayStation game, but it is being published by Bandai Namco. This is the Patapon 1+2 Replay collection, and then Everybody's Golf Hot Shots, which is a new Everybody's Golf game from Clap Hands, who did Clap Hands Golf. There's some people there that worked on Hot Shots. You know, there's a lineage going back to Mario Golf and all this stuff. I don't exactly know what that family tree looks like personally, but Everybody's Golf was a Sony Interactive Entertainment published franchise. This is another one that is also coming to Switch now. Both of these are also coming to Steam. And I don't know, maybe they're coming to Xbox. I haven't seen that myself, though. That may be a bridge too far, but Switch and Steam for sure. Let me ask you, Rhys, when you see something like this, like what do you think's happening? Like, why is Bandai Namco publishing these PlayStation games for Sony on Sony's behalf? Do you have like insight into that at all?
No, I don't really have any insight on it, but I do know that compared to Xbox, obviously, PlayStation is a little bit more guarded, even with
Gun shy.
publishing on yeah, exactly, gun shy. So if it does come to Xbox and Bandai Namco is the publisher there, that could be kind of the giveaway, right? Like PlayStation, despite, you know, it brought like Lego Horizon to Switch and was kind of the publisher there, it doesn't really, I think it was published there, I could be wrong, but it does not, like PlayStation, Sony does not want kind of PlayStation games to be on Xbox. So it could be something to do with that. I don't know. That's just speculation.
Yeah, we this is something we did discuss on the talk over for a little bit, and you know, we had two schools of thought. It's like, yeah, on the one hand, maybe Sony doesn't want to be seen or to be seen to be like putting these games out themselves on Switch and other systems, and you know, like they're worried about backlash or something like that. And then it's, you know, the other thing is this is probably just more affordable, or you know, or maybe it just saves them time. Like I don't like what are their resources like for something like this? Is this something they really want distracting them? I don't know. So we thought about both. I do think there's something to it about, you know, being a little bit, yeah, you know, kind of dip your toe in before you actually jump into the pool. And so, yeah, some of these things start happening. And if you kind of turn up the heat, you know, I'm using a lot of analogies now, but if you turn up the heat slowly on the lobster, right, it doesn't notice. And so maybe they're thinking they can get away with that here. And the PlayStation fans who are worried about, hey, are we going to start losing some of these other bigger exclusives? Why they would worry about that, I don't know. But maybe they won't notice if it happens slowly like this. You know, maybe the simplest solution is something else, but that's definitely something I was considering. Either way,
That's a
though,
good theory.
yeah, I mean, yeah, we don't really know, but I think either way, it is interesting to see Patapon on Switch. Do you think that this is something that we see more of, or is it like a one-off? Because for me, this does feel like a breaking of the dam a little bit.
Yeah, a little bit. I think we will probably just see more PlayStation games on Switch, not Xbox. Obviously, they directly competing, but you know, I can imagine we'll see like Horizon games on Switch, Horizon Zero Dawn. They already kind of
Yeah,
experimented with the
huh,
Lego one. Like Astrobot would be a great game for the Switch.
I would
Obviously,
love
you
that.
don't have the haptics and everything, but like
Well, you have HD
it
Rumble
would.
though.
Yeah, true, true. Yeah, I mean, we don't really know what the Switch 2 has there, but I
Hmm.
mean, so I mean, according to Linear Analytics, like Astrobot, despite being like it was my game of the year last year, I loved it, but it's only sold like 2.3 million copies. But if it came to Switch, I think it would sell far more than that. I think they could like times three that pretty easily because
Hmm.
so there's 3D platformers in the Switch like it's very like Switch players. Like there's a lot of kids there. Mario Odyssey sold so many copies. It's
Yeah.
just it would be a match made in heaven. Even the Lego games, right? They sell like tens of millions of copies on the Switch. It's like it really. I think PlayStation needs to put that thing on Switch to really kind of get ahead of that. But again, there's so many PlayStation properties in Astrobot. There's so much licensing. There's so much,
It would be weird,
so
but
many hoops to jump through. It'd be weird, but it would definitely be lucrative for them.
right. And I think that's the sense I'm getting here is what is more important to Sony, avoiding something that's weird or making money. I mean, we hear the way Hiroki Totoki speaks. He wants to be making money. Like he's like, we got to be like everything we do needs to make more money, like needs to make more profit than it did before. And everything needs to just be more profitable in any way we can do that. And I think that eventually does lead to something like Astrobot on Switch. Because you're right, they know what the audience demographics look like. They know the reality is that a game like that can perform much better on Switch, and it's done its thing on PlayStation. It's had, it's definitely grown an audience there, and it's attracted people that normally maybe would not have played games like that because it is just that good. But the game deserves even more, and they can make a lot more money from it by putting it out somewhere else, namely the Switch. All right. Other things maybe worth pointing out. There was a Disney Villains Cursed Cafe game that's out today. You make coffee, I guess, and tea with a bunch of villains from the Disney universe. There is Monument Valley 1, 2, and 3 are all coming to the Switch. Tamagotchi Plaza is how they said it. There is a new Tamagotchi game where like it kind of looked a lot like Animal Crossing, but with Tamagotchis. So that's interesting. Dragon Quest 1 and 2 HD 2D remakes were here. They looked very good. But Nintendo themselves had other announcements. The main one that I was personally most interested in was the virtual game card. This is, you know what, I'll just read this. I do think this is a write up that comes from Nintendo. Introducing the virtual game card, a new feature for easily managing purchased digital games, playing games on two different systems, and even lending or borrowing games. Similar in concept to moving physical game cards between systems, virtual game cards make it possible to eject and that's in quotes, a purchased digital title from one Nintendo Switch system and load it onto another, whether it belongs to whether it belongs to a member of the same Nintendo Family Group account or a second system tied to your account. This optional feature allows you to view virtual game cards or eject them from your system. The digital game can also be linked to a Nintendo Family Group member's system via local wireless connection. Games that you lend can then be played on a Nintendo account Family Group member systems for 2 weeks, after which the game will be automatically returned to you. This feature will be available on Nintendo Switch starting late April via a new hardware system update. Additionally, virtual game cards will also work with Nintendo Switch 2 systems at launch. I've been wanting a family solution for a long time. I think the way that Steam Deck works is wonderful. It is just, hey, if you have a collection of games, add people to your family. I think you can have up to 5, and as long as they, are just as long as you don't like take people in and out frequently, they could just have access to your whole library, and they could play anything in your library at the same time you're playing something else. If you're trying to play the same game, that does occasionally cause some problems, although it's not always a problem. That's the most elegant solution, the one that I'm the biggest fan of. I am okay with what this sounds like for me because I am there's 3 people playing games pretty regularly on the Switch in my household, and that's been a hassle. When it's just 2 people, you can do the thing where, and a lot of people I think do this, where one person has the Switch main account where you buy the games. They put that account on the other Switch that they're not using, and then they use their account on the secondary Switch because they can access all their games, on a secondary or on their main account through a secondary Switch without having to like do a bunch of checks, or you could just do a quick check online, and then that way the other person can use their separate account on the primary Switch. It's confusing, but it works. This sounds like a more like streamlined and integrated version of that for the most part. And then on top of that, you can lend games by just anyone in your family group, which I think is up to 8 people. So, and that only lasts for 2 weeks, but I'm sure you can re-up it after that point. I think this is pretty cool, and it's great to see this come from Nintendo. It does remind me a little bit of the old Xbox One. Hey, lend your digital games to someone. Whole solution that Microsoft had before they had to go back on all that when people freaked out. Do you think that we're in a different place now? Is this just a more elegant solution overall? How do you feel about this?
Yeah, I mostly agree. I think I don't know, maybe I'm just speaking for you, but I think you're in kind of more of a unique position that you get like codes for the Switch, right? And
Yes,
like
yeah, and I like digital
yeah.
anyhow, but that is what got me over to digital in the first place. Is Nintendo
Hmm.
started sending out all the review codes for the 3DS as codes, and I'm like, I like this. This is better for me. So yes, I'm a digital boy.
Yeah, exactly. But I think a lot of people still, especially for Nintendo, it's like over half still will buy
Yes,
physical copies. So, when people gift their kids games, they open them kind of more physical. So I think number one that it's a smart thing to do, and it does echo a lot of what the Xbox One did over 10 years ago. Like has just come to be, right? Like always online, like digital only. Like it's all kind of come to be. They were just a little bit too early and a little bit. They weren't nudging gamers; they were forcing gamers. But like on the topic of nudging gamers, I think like what Nintendo is trying to do with this is kind of nudge its players a little bit away from physical, more towards
yes,
digital, because there's so much physical buy-in still on Nintendo. And like across the whole console market, it's all kind of moving more towards digital, which is driven by like your multi-game subscriptions, like Game Pass, free to plays rise because they're all downloaded, and also like platform holders pushing consumers to digital through perks like cosmetics, preloading games so you can play them like on launch at midnight without having to go to a shop or whatever. But of course, like the elephant in the room is like the value proposition of physical games is like those pre-owned and rental markets, which give
uh
players
huh,
a lot of choice. But platform holders and publishers, they don't like those markets because they don't get revenues from that. Like, a game could be sold on the reseller market 100 times or rented 100 times. But the publisher, the platform holder will only capture revenues from that first sale. But like a more digital only market means that your publishers, platform holders have more control over the prices. They can kind of maximize their copies sold. And of course, like we all know, the viewers all know that like price in the physical games market is a lot more elastic versus digital. So basically, more beholden to supply and demand, which is why often like your pre-owned physical games are often a lot cheaper than sometimes they're more expensive, but more often than not, they're cheaper than the digital versions that you'll find on the PlayStation and Xbox and even the Nintendo store. Nintendo's a bit different, like because they never really reduce their
yeah.
prices, but still beholden to supply and demand, right?
Yeah, I mean, yeah, I think all of those like pressures, like you touched on all the things that are happening here. That Nintendo still has a lot of people buying games physically, and probably one of the things that's holding people back is this idea of I like to be able to lend games to other people in my family or whatever. So this answers that. They also do see the trends, even though they are less affected by the trend than everyone else. They see the way it's trending, and it is going more digital. So being there ready to capture an audience that's a little bit more hesitant makes some sense. And then I think that they are okay. Well, we have been able to keep the prices of our games high, which has been great, and we love that, and it's going to continue. That's going to continue to be the case. But we also see some people who are more price sensitive. So what if because they're like, we'll just go get a used copy. Well, what if there were fewer used copies out there because more people are buying digital because we did get more people to buy in because they like this system. It's all. I think they're just kind of slowly trying to lead us all to the water of things that make them a higher profit margin. So I get it. I'm glad that it looks like this because I will use this. But I don't want the used game market to go away either. I want some sort of alternative price competition to be out there, so these companies have to be reined in a little bit. And I don't think they're going to suddenly just pull the rug on us, but they're definitely trying to do. We're all the lobsters in this case. They're turning up the water on us, the heat on the water on us in this situation for sure. Um, PlayStation and Xbox, this is maybe less of an issue for them, right? Because Switch is the kind of thing you frequently probably have households with multiple Switches in it. That's maybe less of a case for Xbox and PlayStation, but do you see the chance where they might try to mimic this?
I mean, kind of like in on PlayStation, you can already do it through a workaround, right? Like
Yes,
you
the same
can,
workaround. Yeah, the account sort
yeah,
of sharing. Yeah,
yeah, but just obviously PlayStation never really talks about it, but they haven't
yeah,
done anything about it either. So like they know about it and they just kind of like put up with it. Xbox is obviously a different beast because like the Series S is the kind of main SKU and Game Pass is so popular, so everything's digital there. So they kind of also nudged people towards digital in that way. So yeah, you're right that it's kind of just less of a thing for PlayStation and Xbox, and that's kind of borne out in the numbers as well, right? They're all predominantly digital, whereas the Switch is more kind of like 50-50 there. So
hmm
yeah, I completely agree that it is they're just kind of like you said earlier, slowly boiling the frog, just like not pushing people too much because we saw with the Xbox One, they pushed people that did not go well. I mean, yeah, the connect of it all and the
Oh, of course.
$100
Yeah.
more expensive was obviously part of it as well, the TV
Yeah,
stuff.
but
But
it was it
yeah,
was it was the game sharing and the licensing stuff that really got out there to people because I remember like hearing conversations at GameStop of the clerk and the customer talking, be like, I heard the Xbox just won't work with used games. What are we going to do? And it's like even after that had changed, that was still the thing that had broken through to the mainstream. So we're here now. It's different, and I think also the companies, they went a whole generation. Nintendo went a whole generation not offering this solution, maybe thinking, can we get these families to buy multiple copies of these games? And maybe that happened with Mario Kart. I don't know. Mario Kart seems like that's a game that did sell, maybe two copies in a lot of households, but most people did not buy multiple copies of a game so that multiple kids could play them at the same time. I think what they found is even in like, 'cause, I mean, my household, we're very gaming centric, and I do want to be like when a kid wants to play a game, I'm like, you know what? Let me see what I can do to make sure you can do that. When they're like, okay, I want to play that game because she's playing at the same time, and I want to play it now, I'm like, well, I'm not buying it again. That's just not happening. And I think if I'm feeling that way, anyone who's like even a little bit less serious than I am about games, there's no way that they were doing this. There was no way they were buying multiple copies of games. So I think Nintendo recognizes that now. And it's like, instead, let's use this momentum in a slightly different direction, make digital a little bit more friendly so that people want to buy the digital copy because then we get a slightly higher profit margin. All right. Last thing from the direct, Nintendo today. We touched on it a little bit. It is a new app. Miyamoto came out and talked about it, and he's like, okay, yeah, I'll read this one as well. A brand new app that delivers Nintendo content to your smartphone. This device app is like a daily calendar which delivers a variety of content, including latest news, videos, and comics of your favorite Nintendo games and characters from select franchises. After the Nintendo Direct presentation about Nintendo Switch 2 on April 2nd, you'll also find information about the Switch 2 system directly on the app. Anyone with a Nintendo account and compatible smart device can use the free app. Okay. A Nintendo account. I was like, a Nintendo Switch Online account. You have to subscribe to this? No, it's just a Nintendo account. It's available to download today from the App Store and the Google Play Store starting today. Um, yeah, I mean, listen, for me, I'm like, why can't this stuff just show up on my Alarmo? But I get most people don't have Alarmos or want them for $100. But Nintendo's certainly very weird, Rhys. What do you think the idea is behind this?
I couldn't even guess. I mean, they're doing the Nintendo Music thing. They just want to like kind of be the arbiters of their own messaging, I guess. But like, I don't know. There are so many smartphone apps already. People are using social media for this stuff. Like maybe the family audience, but like I don't know. I don't think this is gonna like penetrate users that much. It wouldn't. But it's just Nintendo things. But who knows? It could become the biggest damn thing in the world. If this is the app that they use to trickle through information about the Switch 2, then we'll all use it, right? I'll use it as an analyst. You'll use it as a journalist slash analyst. Like, we'll all be like hanging on this app's every word. So it just really depends how they distribute information through it.
Yeah, if they do like a scavenger hunt in there for like to announce a new Smash Brothers character whenever they have a new Smash Brothers game, a lot of people will download the app. Yes, without a doubt.
Yes. Yeah.
It's my hunch here that the thinking is, uh, boy, we have to use a lot of other platforms that could very easily be corrupted or made toxic or purchased by a billionaire who's gone insane. And while we are not necessarily going to flee from those platforms where we have a huge voice, maybe we should be looking at ways to own our own messaging, as you said. I don't know if it'll work, but I do think that is the impetus behind this, that they want to be in control of their platforms wherever they have platforms. And if that means delivering news to people directly from themselves, well, that's what this is going to look like. The Nintendo Direct format is what they try to tie this to. Like, hey, we like sending news directly to you through the Nintendo Direct. And now we're going to do that with an app. It is very different things. I don't feel inclined to go and open a Nintendo app every day if it's just like, well, today here's a comic about Yoshi. But if they can make the occasional very interesting announcement and having an exclusive trailer in there for an hour before it shows up on YouTube, I would check that. So but I'm
Yeah.
a sicko for Nintendo stuff. So it's an interesting thing, but it also feels like a weird Nintendo decision.
Yeah, true. I guess one thing to keep in mind for us is that you need a Nintendo account, a paid Nintendo account, I guess, to
No,
use it.
I don't think it's so. I think you just need to register your a Nintendo account. That is separate
Okay.
from the Nintendo Switch Online subscription service. So I was wondering that too. It looks
Mm.
like it's just sign up for a Nintendo account, which is free. So
Okay,
there you
then
go.
it's just weird. It's just weird as hell then.
It's just Nintendo being weird. Yep. All right. Let's take a break. When we get back, plenty more to talk about, including Crystal Dynamics layoffs and a lot more right after this. All right, let's get back into it. Real quick before we move on, someone captured a look at the Nintendo Switch 2 experience event in New York. Of course, Nintendo invited a bunch of fans to come to events all around the world. The one in New York is being set up right now because I think it happens very quickly after the Switch 2 Direct next week. And it looks, it just says a bunch of banners that says Switch 2. But it's happening. We're here. And people, like fans, will be there next week actually seeing that thing. Maybe playing it. I assume they'd get a chance to actually play it. I can't remember if they said that or not. But we will have a lot more information about that thing before we know it. All right, let's get on to this. Tomb Raider studio Crystal Dynamics has laid off staff. This is from Evan Campbell at GameSpot. Crystal Dynamics has announced that 17 employees have been laid off. The studio, currently working on a new Tomb Raider and Perfect Dark, stated that this will help with future success, while adding it's not tied to a person's performance or ability. On Twitter, the official Crystal Dynamics account posted about the layoffs. We did not make this decision lightly, reads the statement from the developer. Ultimately, this step was necessary to better align our current business needs and the studio's future success. It is not a reflection on the dedication or ability of those affected. In addition, Crystal Dynamics claims that the company's downsizing won't affect developments on any projects. Almost two years ago, the studio made similar reassurances about Tomb Raider and Perfect Dark not being disrupted after the massive Embracer Group layoffs and developer closures in 2023. This is a studio that has made a lot of good games, and they are currently working on two of what has to be some of the most lucrative deals that Embracer has made. A co-development deal for Perfect Dark, where they are working with the Initiative, I believe it's called, the studio that Microsoft has, but it seems like Crystal Dynamics is handling the bulk of the work. And then a massive deal with Amazon for Tomb Raider. And so like those deals had to be a lot of money. And it's like, well, hey, I think that money probably should have gone to keeping a lot of people employed at the studio who has to make those projects. Embracer thinks differently, Rhys. What do you think about all this?
It's ridiculous. Like, it's not business needs. It's more of like just a damning indictment of Embracer's like continued corporate mismanagement. And like, frankly, the games market's like growing tolerance for just exploiting talent as disposable assets. But like, I mean, I guess I could zoom out a little bit. Like on the Embracer front, there's just so many failures. Like they're basically, it's like debt fueled greed. It's not business needs. Like it's Embracer, not Crystal, that's the architect of this. Let's be honest. Embracer's like $300 million in debt. And they had this like utter reliance on the Saudi investment deal that fell through. And they kind of blamed that in the last round of
Yes,
layoffs.
they
And
did.
yeah, but like, yeah, exactly. But the fact is, like, this was all the result of like a mindless, reckless acquisition spree. Like, Embracer has spent years and years gobbling up studios and then happily patting themselves on the back in the PR and the press releases And it is just like, I could get in trouble saying this, but I don't care. It's just to like inflate the like market value,
Oh
and then
yeah.
only to kind of discard workers when their like pyramid scheme of like growth at all costs, like it's just collapsed. And like, as always, Jeff, it's just the workers who are paying for these executives' failures. And it is just all about like appeasing shareholders after Embracer's leadership gambled on just complete unsustainable expansion. They're like, these people are like collateral damage in this like boardroom game of risk gone wrong. And they can't, like, they used to blame the pandemic, like, oh yeah, we have overextended ourselves in the pandemic. But no, they bought Crystal Dynamics in the summer of 2022 when the world started like reopening again, you know, as it was a part of Square Enix's divestment from the Western studios. And like as well, like they mentioned like future success, but like how? Like talent
Well,
is the
who's
life.
gonna make it? Yeah, who's gonna make these games if you're
Yeah,
firing people? Yeah.
exactly. And like even like from an operational perspective, like dismantling these teams like mid-project, yeah, it was only like what, like was it 10, 15 or something people? But
Yeah, something
still,
like that.
that's a hefty percentage of the team. So doing that like mid-project for Tomb Raider, for the stuff they're doing with the initiative, it just like wrecks morale. I know this from personal experience, like working on projects. Like it delays the timelines, it jeopardizes the quality. And then you have like Lars Wingefors, who's the CEO, like he still retains his billion-plus net worth and his like Ponzi scheme nonsense. And it's, yeah, sorry, I'm just kind of
No,
diatribing right
please.
now, but it really does annoy me. It's like Embracer has acquired like dozens of studios, not just Crystal Dynamics, and it's not to like nurture creativity. It's to like monopolize IP and just like strip it, extract value, squeeze the studios dry. It's like not like restructuring, like it's just like corporate vampirism. And like, yeah, they offer severance, and so that's better than nothing. Like, just
Sure.
to tell the
They
truth, but like, it
almost
doesn't
certainly
absolve
legally have to do that in the territory where
exactly.
Crystal Dynamics is at. Yeah.
Yeah,
It's
it doesn't.
yeah,
Go
go
ahead.
ahead.
Sorry.
No, okay, yeah. I'm just got like I can't help but like imagine someone like Lars Wingefors as like Adam Sandler in Uncut Gems, where he's just like grinning at the person whose labor he's gonna just find a way to make money off of, and he's just gonna keep pushing it and keep betting on it, and then when it blows up in his face, it like the answer to it is keep betting on it some more, and that movie ends in a certain way, but this is not gonna well, it's not gonna end in exactly the same way, but it's a situation where they had so much free money that they never really questioned themselves, and that is the mismanagement, right? You don't, if you can get money at basically zero interest rates, 0% interest rate, a very low interest rate, effectively zero for years. You don't like you previously would have to answer to someone about like, how do we justify borrowing this money? We're going to have to pay back interest. That is, someone's going to be responsible for that, and they didn't have to. So they had years and years of just kind of wheeling and dealing and kind of being free from responsibility. And then when the shit hits the fan, when things actually go wrong, and they should have been like, okay, sure, that was a lot of free money, but we probably should have still been judicious and thoughtful about all this, and we weren't. So you know what? That's on us. We made some mismanagement decisions. We are bad. No, that's never happened. Lars Wingefors has never answered for any of this. He's never even during the time when everyone I would report on this. We'd have shows. We'd talk about this. We'd be like, okay, hey, well, what is happening here? Why are they making these decisions? I tried to talk to Lars Wingefors like 6 times. Never got a response a single time. Doesn't want to answer for it then. Certainly doesn't want to answer for it now, except for the answer being, let's cut some jobs so we can save some cash. And future success clearly just being one number looks bigger on a bottom line than another. It's going to keep happening because it's the same people in charge and really, under the same system where this sort of behavior is, if not demanded, it is expected. Although I do think it's demanded by shareholders a lot of times. They want people that behave like Lars Wingefors. So we're going to keep getting this, and it's very frustrating. It does feel like we are not going to be able to break out of this cycle repeating itself for a very long time. So I hope that Crystal Dynamics is the people working there can pick themselves up and get back to work. We're going to play your games, and we're going to be happy that you're doing that labor, and the people that got fired, like we'll try to respect them as much as possible. I'm sorry that the people that are paying you don't. Like, I really am apologetic for that. All right. Nightdive boss shares optimism for No One Lives Forever remaster despite studio closure. This is from Chris Scullion at VGC. Nightdive studio head says he's optimistic that one day the studio could remaster classic shooter No One Lives Forever, despite the recent closure of its developer Monolith Productions. No One Lives Forever is a first-person shooter originally released on PC in 2000 and PS2 in 2002. The game earned a cult following for its humorous take on the 1960s spy genre, with players controlling a secret agent called Kate Archer, who's armed with a series of gadgets designed like perfume, hair clips, designed to look like a perfume and hair clips, lipstick, and other fashion items. Night Dive basically said, and it's like, the main people at Night Dive, the CEO, and then like Larry Cooperman, who is their business development director, who is a really swell guy. Larry Cooperman, everybody, thumbs up to that guy. He's just very nice. Either way, they were like, hey, we think we could still make this happen, even though it will be more challenging, and we want to do right by Monolith and make sure that the games like this are remembered. But they essentially said, we could give up, but we never give up on these things. And I think that's why they've been so successful at bringing back so many things. It's like Night Dive's doing this and that. They're doing, the System Shock 1 and 2, and all these other games that they have worked on. It's because they really are voracious about chasing down any opportunity, and I hope they're able to do this. No One Lives Forever is definitely a game that I would like to go back and revisit. You think there's a chance we get this in the next couple of years, even after the collapse of Monolith?
I hope so. I hope somebody like picks it up and like really does like bring it to market, because it'd just be a big shame for everything that they've done to be lost. But it is tough times, Jeff. Who can say? But I hope that it works out. I really do.
Yep. Let's hit these next ones here pretty quick. Rocksteady's next Batman game is going to use Unreal Engine 5. Not a huge surprise. They have always used Unreal Engine on their games. Their last Batman game, before Suicide Squad, was, I think, still Unreal Engine 3. So maybe a big upgrade here with them going to 5. Although if it's open world, which it probably will be, Unreal Engine 5 still a little bit shaky for that, I think. Developers have struggled to get that engine to perform well with games that have big sprawling open spaces. But hey, we'll see. And then 3 Xbox games are in the top 10 pre-orders on PS5 right now. We talked about the dam breaking a little bit for PlayStation games, maybe going elsewhere. The wall has just come down now, right? And it's been, I think, by all measures, a success for Microsoft putting their games out everywhere else. Is that your read on it?
Yeah, absolutely. Like I can give you some numbers to back that up.
Yeah,
So,
please.
and I've kind of benchmarked these, and they're good. So, Alinea Analytics data shows that Sea of Thieves has sold almost 1.8 million copies on PS5,
Wow.
and that's Sea of Thieves, which is like not niche. Like it has a massive audience. Actually, it's not really
Yes.
talked about, but like it does have a massive audience. But if Sea of Thieves can sell 1.8 million or almost 1.8 million, like what's Forza going to sell? What's Halo going to sell when it inevitably comes? Because it's going to happen. And I'm actually writing a blog post on that right now,
Okay, cool.
on the sales of the Xbox games on PlayStation. So that's coming out tomorrow. Sorry to shill my stuff too much.
No, please.
But yeah, the data is looking promising, and I think like when Indie and Forza drop next month, is going to be a splash, because what was it, like 3 of the Xbox games are in the top 10 pre-orders on PS5 or something?
Yeah,
like
that's what it says. So you can see the like a list of the games, and it's Indiana Jones is on there. It's actually on there twice. Forza is on there twice, and then the other game being Doom: The Dark Ages. And that's at number 10. If this is going in the order I expect it's going in. So yeah, other games are on there. The Kazan, Days Gone remastered, Atomfall, things like that. But other than that, it's like, man, really dominated by Microsoft in a lot of ways. And a big part of that is Microsoft's hitting its stride with the studios it's acquired. A lot of those games are coming out and being very, they're very good. Obviously, Forza Horizon 5 is fantastic. And again, that is like my chill out game right now, Rhys. I'm just, when I get a little bit of time, which isn't frequently, but when I do and I'm just don't want to think, I can sit down and play that game. And it is so good. You're right. I think that is going to do very well on PlayStation.
Yeah.
All right, let's get these last ones. Neil Druckmann clarifies comments on Last of Us 3. He basically said the same. So previously he said, don't bet on us making a Last of Us Part 3. Here he's like, look, all I was trying to say is the stars need to align. And then he said, I approach every game I make as if it's going to be my last one because I don't know how long it's going to take. And Rhys, I lost your camera, but I don't know if you can still hear me or not. Let us know.
I can still hear you. Yeah.
Okay, we'll do it this way for a little bit. Yeah, he's like the stars have to align and all this stuff. And I think the reality here is he might not be involved. He might not make it because I get the sense that he really does feel like worn out after that last game because the response to that, while it was critically acclaimed, there were a lot of backlash from various pockets of the internet and all that stuff. And then he's got kind of another career now, like working in Hollywood, making TV shows, which is very lucrative. And he gets residuals on that. I'm sure he's got a pretty good contract at PlayStation actually, but the residual situation he's got from TV is going to be pretty good as well. So I just don't know if he's got it in him personally, but that's just me reading into the situation. Last of Us Part 3 probably does happen though, right?
Yeah, I think so. And he's also, with the HBO show, like you said, like I think he's really enjoying that. Like there's less crunch, like that, it's more sustainable, so to speak, in a lot of ways. And also like he's working on Intergalactic as well, their
Yep.
new IP. So yeah, maybe like his like this is again just conjecture, but like maybe he's thinking I'm gonna wrap up Intergalactic and then retire. But yeah, like for him to say no Last of Us Part 3 is kind of like a little bit of hubris, I guess, because The Last of Us can continue without Neil, right? Like
Right.
it would be very strange of PlayStation to like forego kind of that IP, especially because it's like penetrate the mainstream of the HBO show. But yeah, I largely just agree with you, Jeff. I think it's something like that.
Yeah, and like I get like it does seem like Sony gives a lot of latitude to Naughty Dog and to Neil Druckmann in particular. But if he does one day decide, oh, I am going to kind of move on from this position of overseeing all the games that Naughty Dog makes, I think Sony at that point would be like, great, thank you for your service. You are welcome back at any time. But we got to go figure out what we're doing without you, and that's probably going to mean someone else is making Last of Us Part 3. And maybe he's just not thinking about it in those terms. I don't know. All right. That does it for the headlines. Let's see here. We had a poll question from yesterday. Let's get to that right here. We had the direct, but I did want to see what people thought. Which direct has more information about Metroid Prime 4? Honestly, maybe it's still up in the air. I think it will be the Switch 1 direct. And that's what 45% of respondents thought. 29% of people think it's mostly going to be in the Switch 2 direct. 19% say neither. That's the Dan Reichert vote. And then 7% said both. At this point, both is maybe actually the safe bet. While we did get a full-on trailer, having if the release date and a little bit more information shows up at the Switch 2 Direct, I would count that as both. So maybe the 7% there are onto something. Yeah, Metroid Prime 4 on Switch 2 release date. That's my bet. Is that where you're at? I can't remember what we discussed. Is that what you were thinking?
Yeah, I think so. I think it's going to be a Breath of the Wild kind of situation, Twilight Princess kind of situation, where it's just both. And also the Switch 2 has backwards compatibility as well.
Yep.
So, that's part of it. Maybe it'll be like buy it on Switch 1 because I think it'll be $70, honestly. And then it'll just be, you can just play it on Switch 2. And because they're really gunning for that Nintendo account stuff, the Switch Online stuff. So yeah, I think it'll probably be straddling like that.
Well, either way, I want to play it. All right. New poll question. I didn't write anything down here, so I'll come up with something on the fly. But while I'm doing that, Rhys Elliot, why don't you tell people where they can find you on the internet, what you have going on, and all that good stuff?
Yeah, thanks. You can find me on Blue Sky. I'm Super Rhys on there. That's super, then HYS. And then, like I mentioned earlier, I'm publishing an article tomorrow about how well Xbox games have been selling on PlayStation so far, ahead of Forza and Indiana Jones. So there'll be like some copies sold data there. So yeah, look out for that on my socials and on the Linear Analytics website. Yeah, thanks.
Real quick, it just popped off. I did see this in chat, but from The Verge, Richard Lawler says Nintendo's new app launches with a tiny Switch 2 leak. Basically, it's a confirmation of that C button that we talked about all those weeks ago. This is part of the I think we first heard about this when the third-party accessory makers had a mold and they were kind of sharing around with one another. And it's like, there's a C button here below the home button on the right Joy-Con. What does that do? So I think we'll make that the poll question. What does the C button do? I'll give some options here to actually go up. But basically, like, will it be a like share button, a community button? Will it be some kind of expanded capture button, something along those lines, something else entirely? We'll get the results of that here for Game Breaking News, discuss it on the show tomorrow. Speaking of Giant Bomb and the Power Block, right after this, I think, correct me if I'm wrong, Jan, I think we're going to the GameSpot show. Then after that is Skull and Foams, where Lucy James will pay for her crimes of coming in last in Fantasy Critics. She will play the worst rated games selected by anyone in our Fantasy Critic League from 2024. So that means there was a tie. She's playing Skull and Bones and Foam Stars, which I think is still going. I think you could still play Foam Stars and Skull and Bones. Who knows how long either are going to last. So that'll happen then. And then after that, don't go anywhere. We recorded a voicemail dump truck yesterday with Samoa Joe, and it was something. We will air that live for everyone to see right after Skull and Foam. So don't miss that one. And then more stuff tomorrow. I'm going to play that Schedule 1 for UPF, although maybe we'll throw some other stuff in that UPF as well. There's been some things popping off. The thing I like about Steam, Rhys, is just games can come out of nowhere. I think that is the best thing about gaming still to this day. It's been a thing for a while, early access and things popping off and just becoming the new trend on Steam. But a little weird drug dealing simulator game, being able to capture like tens of thousands concurrent players, that's a wild thing. All right. I think that's going to do it. I don't think I'm forgetting anything else. Rhys Elliot, thank you so much for hanging out with me today and talking about video games, man. I really love having you on the show.
Yeah, I love speaking to you, man, about the industry. It is just like talking to a fellow analyst. Like I talk to analysts all the time, and these conversations feel more like that than when I talk to journalists. Usually it's for like a quote or something, but like when I talk to you, I feel like I'm just talking to another analyst. So I love what you do. I love your show. You are an analyst, right? Let's be honest.
Well, thank you. I appreciate it. I like to think about games. I think that's all it is, and I think that's really what the analyst's job is. Just someone who thinks about games professionally. So, thank you for saying that. I like the way you come in here with all this data and insight. It makes the show better, and the audience loves you too. So that's fantastic. All right, thank you. Speaking of the audience, you're the best audience in video games. Thank you for watching and listening. Until next time, have a good one. Take care of yourself, and goodbye.